are on the block party. It is Ernie's Corner. I'm your host, Joyce Conroy. And I was just telling award-winning creative director and designer Ernie Cefalu. Ernie, we are in the spirit because we have been looking forward to this backstory. Once again, our Cutting Room Floor series. And Ernie is
Yeah.
going to talk all about Snow White and the Seven
Seven
Dwarfs.
Dwarfs. There they are. Yes. Thank you, Joyce.
You're
Hi, everybody.
welcome.
It's great to be here again. I really look forward to this every week. And this one, when Joyce and I talked about having some images that, weren't not everything we ever did sold. And in fact, some of the best stuff ended up on the cutting room floor. Last time we talked about Leon Russell a couple of months ago, and we plan on doing this whole series over the course of the coming year. So this is the number 2 in a series of 6 that we've gotten good response about, and it's kind of interesting because nobody bats 1,000, and I've said that 100 times, but it's really true, and this is a perfect example of that. And what I wanted to do was start out today with sort of going back, because this particular project was based on a couple of other projects that I wanted to talk about. And this is where we're going to start. And it's going to be the Jefferson Airplane Long John Silver package. And if you guys remember this package, and I'll just be brief because it's sort of important. Our whole concept of Pacific Pioneer was to involve the fan or the listener involved more than just taking a record out of the sleeve and putting it on the record player and reading the liner notes and looking at the pictures. And no offense, Joyce, because that's really important. And I know that's really where you love to do it as well. I'm, on the other hand, I don't, I look at
No
the
offense
credit.
taken, Ernie. You are forgiven.
Well, and again, I mean, both are important. Both are important. And this package, when we did this one was done in 1972. And it's a good example of taking a square album cover and doing something more with it. So this album cover folded down into a cigar box, rectangular. So it went from a square to a rectangle. And then it came in a heavy duty sleeve to keep the record in, to put in with your other albums. So we used pretty much the entire package to get fans more involved. You had to construct this, this configuration, and it wasn't easy. I mean, it's all these folds and tucks and scores and pull away stuff, and you ended up with this cigar box, which was really kind of unique. And then we went to the Doors album. This was also done this was done in 1972, along with the Jefferson Airplane package. Those both kind of happened in the same year. And this one sort of didn't really involve as much of the album cover. The album cover that you see up here stayed as a cover with the record inside, and there were 2 extra panels that pulled out of the album, and you see they folded into a zoetrope that sit on a pedestal that the fan had to put together. And it was even crazier to do the mechanical on this, because you had half the images on this one, and then you had to have the other half on this one here, and they had to come together. So they're connected. The 2 panels were connected, popped out, and part of that panel at the bottom here, you can't really see it, was a pedestal that folded out, and you see it in the illustration. So that's really the zoetrope constructed with the pedestal that's constructed, and it slips down. There's a hole in the pedestal that allows the pedestal and the zoetrope to sit on top of the record as it's playing. And the stock was light enough, because we had to do some research on this one to make sure that the weight of it didn't really bog down the music. And it didn't. It was a light enough stock. And over here, and I'll send you the individual images, you'll see the die cut for the pedestal. So this diagram of how you construct it was actually printed on the back side of what you're seeing over here. So this was a pretty complicated package, to say the least. And then, along came this package. and Sesame Street. And we've talked about this before. This was a unique package that sort of had extra panels that folded out in front and gave the viewer, in this case children, the feeling that they're in the live performance, because it was like the first live album for Sesame Street, and this was 1973. So this album came after the first two that we talked about, after the Jefferson Airplane, after the Doors. And this was really kind of unique, and it had a fold-out poster on the yeah, that insert. This was the back. I thought this was my favorite part, along with the front folding out into a stage to give the kid the feeling that they're there live. The back of it, designed with all these numbers, which was an educational thing. It's all about education. So 1 through 10, and then worked in pictures of the cast and stuff behind that. And I mean, it was just a beautiful package. And then inside was this poster, this huge poster that folded out that had all the songs, lyrics written out, and little character drawings that went with them, and the kid could hang it up on the wall. So this became, and it got a lot of buzz. I mean, this package was really kind of talked about and for us having an audience this young was really different from what we were usually set up to do. So after I did this album in 1973, in 1974, and this, I feel like you connecting the dots. In 1974, I was reached out to by Disney Music, who wanted to do, they had seen this Sesame Street package, they had seen the buzz about it. And the guy that was involved with, his name was Ron. I can't remember his last name, but his name was Ron. And he was the guy that was involved with the children's music section of Disney. And he reached out to me because he really loved that Sesame Street package. And he reached out to me and said, I've got this Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs issue that we want to do. And I want to make it interactive. I want to make it as interactive as the Sesame Street package and more, if you can do that. And he didn't really give me any, like, well, it can only be a single record, it can only be this, and it can only be that. And that was pretty much it. I want to have something that the children will get completely involved with. And Sesame Street, for him, you fold it out, it's a stage, you're there, you have learning on the back, and a big poster that really, but this one really didn't do what I ended up doing for Snow White. It was more like the Jefferson Airplane package, where the complete cover, the complete album package was used to create something else. So it went from a square, the Jefferson Airplane, to a rectangular cigar box. The Doors package stayed intact, but the two panels that folded out became a zoetrope. So it was an interesting project. And this is what I ended up with. What you see over here on the front cover is, you got to remember, these packages, this particular comp is 50 years old. And it was put in with all the other stuff, thousands of pieces, sketches and comps and original art and photographs. And so I just put stuff away. When I found these pieces, I didn't find everything, but I found enough to be able to walk us through it. And so what I did here was created this scene. This is the sketch of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, like out in nature and stuff. And I created this really cool logo. And when I found the comp, the logo was gone, the comp, but it was on the inside. Here's the inside. What you see over here is the sketch of that was on the original package comp. When it came to the front cover, it was lost. So what I found out, so I was doing research and stuff, and I found out that they didn't use the album package, but years later, they used this logo.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, I stumbled on it. And let me just backtrack here for a second. What you see over here, this is the back cover. And the back cover is other other possibilities for the kid to put together different scenes. They're all popped out. They're all perforated. Everything is perforated there that can then pop out. So you totally destroy the back cover to create these pieces that you can put into any situation. So again, it's up to the child's imagination what to do with these individual pieces, the different scenes. Along with the logo being lost on this, I couldn't find, like the Doors album, there were two panels that were inserted into the package that helped create additional pieces. So I went from the back cover, front cover stayed intact, went to the back cover. Here's the two panels on the left pulled out, and there were slots that you can see when I send you these images. You'll see there's slots, and on the other panels, the insert, there were tabs where you could change the scene that's in here. There would be Snow White would always be there, but you could change the backgrounds just by taking this one off and putting another one on and folding the tabs over, and you've got a complete different scene. And you can hang it on the wall. There was a hole on the back of this, and it's three-dimensional. You can start to see how once you take this out and start putting it together, it becomes a 3D landscape. So again, and then what you see over here on this panel, all these pieces were perforated and could pop out and be folded into additional different situations that the kid could then, by using his imagination, create all these different scenes that they could create. And the two-panel insert also had a bunch of the dwarfs. So, because I wanted to make it, you had to be really careful not to make it too much a girl thing. You wanted little boys to be involved in it as well. And this is, you're looking at an age group of, 6 to maybe 9. So it's a narrow audience there to be reaching out to. And it was kind of neat because the entire package was destroyed. And the record was in a heavy duty sleeve that you put into, like the Jefferson Airplane thing. Once the package was destroyed, you still had that heavy duty sleeve to be put in, with your other albums. And this total package was really very unique. I mean, and very different. I mean, and when we presented it, the idea back. Oh, and so wait, let me tell you what I did here was, because I found this logo, I actually made a copy of it and glued it on the front of this comp. So that's what you see there. But what you're seeing here on the inside, here and here, is my original comp that went with the package. That one, for some reason, I guess because it folded over, was saved versus being on the front cover where it came into, interacting with other things that were shoved in the storage space that I had put this in. But, again, like this cover, I was lucky enough to find enough pieces to really, make it so that I could talk about it and people could see what was going on. It really, again, hitting a market. The Ron, when he saw it, he just fell in love with it. And I think that the reason why they didn't do it was, first of all, it was pretty complex. There was a lot of stuff that was involved in it. But it's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and it's Disney. I mean, it's one of their biggest films ever. And I think he really fought for it, but it ended up not happening. But it's okay, because years later, he got a promotion and he ended up handling all the backlot stuff on the Disney film lot. And like we had done for Paramount, I did all their backlot stuff. It was called Art Craft. And we created the logos. We did all the brochures. When they started New York Street, which was one of the sets that they had, was an actual street from New York. It was amazing. We did all the promotion for it and stuff. And the same for Universal. So I had already had experience in doing backlot stuff. And we stayed friends. Ron and I stayed friends over the years, as much as you can with life going on. And when he got that promotion, he reached out to us, and we did quite a bit of work for Disney, catalogs showing the different facilities. Because what was happening was these lots because a lot of films were being shot off of a lot at a studio, so they were trying to reach out to all the different factions, food service, wardrobe, sets, all that stuff, and offer these capabilities that the lot had to offer to compete with, productions going off the lot. So that was all happening. That this particular package happened, and then years later, I think it was in the '80s, the early '80s, that Ron had reached back out to us, and he had gotten a promotion. I hadn't talked to him in a while, and he was all excited, and he had seen a couple things that I had done for Paramount, because by this time we were doing all the Paramount backlot stuff, and when they decided, there was a vice president there named Hollis Brown, and her job was to bring all their content, Universal Films and stuff, to home video. And she hired us because of Sandra Forney, who used to work at Motown when we did the Save the Children album. She became Hollis's right-hand man, and she right away said, hey, you should really reach out to these guys to do. So we created the Paramount Home Video packaging, the logo, all the different releases every month there was a new, 20 or 30 releases of all their content onto home video, both beta and VHS. So we did all that. I mean, it was really crazy, and how all these things, and you and I have talked about this before, how something that happens here can end up happening in a different way. I mean, there's really no losing. It's just planting seeds, and some seeds come up quicker than others. But to have faith in knowing that eventually that seed will bear fruit is something that I think it's a little thing called hope.
Yes.
And the more hope we have, and it gives us confidence in what we do. And I know I'm preaching to the choir when it comes to hope. You have quite a track record yourself, don't you?
Yeah, and faith. Faith
Yeah.
really means a lot. Now, see, for me personally, and I'm thinking now, see, I'm a baby boomer. So, as a kid, it was more in the early 60s. I would have loved this because it reminded me of the cutouts that we used to
Yes.
have. You would
Yes.
go into a book and construct a cutout, and it would be
Yeah.
like maybe a favorite cartoon characters. A lot of companies were
Yeah.
putting that together. So for me as a kid, it would have certainly appealed. But
Yeah.
I guess the powers that be were looking at, well, maybe, it's going to be too complicated. But I think there's some creativity and thought, and many children like to do that. And Snow White is very intriguing, and the Seven Dwarfs, I think they would have really found it interesting. It's a shame that it ended up on the cutting room floor at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, but it's okay. We're talking about it now, which is kind of neat.
Yes.
And I think that people like you have, and I can relate to that. The cutouts, I mean, the whole book that you got with the cutouts, every page was a cutout. So you ended up throwing the book away because you had all the different things already out of it.
Yep.
This was exactly a vehicle like Sesame Street, education, imagination, you know, give yourself all these different options to create all these different scenarios and different scenes, and then to be able to hang this up on your wall as a 3D piece was really neat. I mean, it would be something, and then you could change it. You could take it down and change the scene. It was totally it was Sesame Street repackaged on steroids, because it was about education and
Yes.
imagination, which is what Sesame Street was all about, 100%. Companies like Disney, well, this was not 100%. They were into everything. It's from animation films to, all that stuff was a lot more, more in their scope of what they needed to do to make the numbers and be profitable. So music was like one small piece of all that they did in their portfolio of
Yeah.
what they did. So, but again, like I said, it was a negative when it happened, because when I presented this around, I was like just so elated that look at this, isn't this great? And he was just tracking everything. And I wished I could find those two panels. I've looked everywhere because it was just like you're seeing here and on the back cover. It's all these things that you could cut out and put together and make little scenes. And you got the dwarfs and you got Snow White, you got the prince, and all that the story that was really sort of depicted in what we had created here. And again, when he moved up, you had at Disney, it was like Nestle. There were different groups that you had to get blessings of to move it forward, kind of like the government,
No, that's a great comparison.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I think he was somewhat successful. I mean, he didn't lose his job, but the project didn't get done. But it's so funny that later on, they picked up on this logo and used it on other stuff later on, years later. And that happens a lot. Major corporations like the ones that I've worked for, Disney, Nestle, Kraft, Coca-Cola, when they have their agencies make presentations for campaigns and stuff, they keep all copies of everything and they put them in files. I've experienced this a lot when we're in working with corporate America, where because brand managers change a lot, and so a brand manager that may have had us give them the finger Butterfinger, and the needs that it were had, even though it didn't get done, and we did 100 shirts and the executives got them. That presentation, along with the other stuff that we presented, was put in a file. And every new brand manager that comes on to Butterfinger would be able to revisit all those different ideas. And Disney is exactly the same. They did the same stuff. They keep all that stuff and they go back when a new person comes on the brand. In a way, it's right for them to do it because they pay for it. They pay for the presentations that we make. Disney paid for this, even though they didn't use it. They didn't pay as much as they would have if they would have done it, because all these are just rough sketches and comps. I mean, each one of these would have been redone in final art. So this was just the presentation, which they paid for. They own it, and that's why they keep it. And again, I think that's the main reason, and the secondary reason for that is so that new people can on a brand, whether you're the brand manager or associates or whatever, have a chance to review what was considered in the past. And maybe there was something back then that was canceled, but then years later used. And, this is a perfect example of that. They didn't use the package, but they used that logo.
What is
So,
very interesting about this too is when you were designing this is that even though like when the child would, if it would have been used, would have put together the scenes, that the record itself was safe. You thought about that, and they could
yeah,
store the record. And it makes me think about that group one, where
yeah,
where
yeah,
they wanted it to self-destruct, and
yeah,
maybe it was the wrong target
yeah.
audience, Ernie, there.
Blip crotch.
But reality
Reality
blip
grip crotch.
crotch.
Yeah. And it's so funny because that would have been a great album today. You had made that comment a couple times, and it really would have. I mean, it really, and that's the other thing. I mean, sometimes you can be ahead of yourself, and
That's it. You
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 know,
get the nail on the head there.
yeah. Well, and it's happened. It's happened a lot when you're in the creative business, whether you're a disc jockey, an artist, a person who builds custom cars. There is, it's a challenge. It really is to be unique enough and have enough imagination to come up with stuff, and that holds for your profession as well. And I think that that's one of the reasons why you're so great at doing this block party thing. I mean, you're all over the place with the music, but everything that you do, you have the history behind. And, we've talked about this. I mean, the beautiful thing that you add to what I've done is you connect the dots. You give documentation and history that I'm trying to do, but it's only piece of it. The piece that you add to it is so critical, so incredibly critical. And I think I've mentioned to you this before. I mean, you're the partner in doing this that I've been looking for. I had one partner like you in the beginning at Pacific Pioneer, a guy named Tony Graboy, and we worked together like unbelievable. It was like we were like a fine Swiss watch, but he did nothing creative. I mean, he was the business guy and the sales guy, and he was so good at sales. I mean, he was amazing, and you need someone like that. And when you don't have them, they're truly missed. And I'm totally blessed to have you in my life and all our neighbors, our wonderful neighbors here on the block, Joyce. It's just incredible. And like I said before, I can't wait for Friday to come and then Saturday. You know, Saturday's the big day. We can promote what we're going to be doing during the week, but Saturday's the big day. And I look forward to, I watch every show and I watch them a few times to make sure that, you know, I don't have a booger hanging out of my nose,
You
drooling on
you
the side
you
of my
looked
lip.
you look totally fun. It makes me feel like I'm a kid again. It really, and looking at this design for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs really brings back a lot of memories. Ernie,
Yeah.
now we were talking about this mind meld. I can't
Oh,
wait to hear the
oh.
songs.
Well, you know, I was a big Disney fan. We went to Disneyland in the 50s with my parents from Northern California, and it was amazing. I remember being in our Kaiser, coming up to Disneyland, and you could see the mountain. You know, you could see the Matterhorn there, and it was just so, and they had the Autobahn. I mean, it was such an incredible thing. And, you know, this kind of album brings back a lot of memories. For me, the songs that would have been on this album, hopefully, would be Whistle While You Work, because it was so much what I do. And then the one that really resonated with me is You're Never Too Old to Be Young.
That's beautiful. That is just so perfect. Now, what comes up for me is
Yeah,
I'm
well,
going to go ahead and find this, and I still have this album. This is jogging a lot of memories. I believe it was Golf, the Golf Gas Company, Golf Western. They
uh,
put out, it was Walt Disney's Merriest Songs. It was
uh,
my brother's album that I inherited. I still have it, and I think I'm going to dig it out and play. I don't know the cuts right now because I have such a massive collection, as Ivor Levine saw, but
yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna dig it out. But another good one that I like is the Work Song by Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass, because
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
think of
there
the
you go.
Seven Dwarfs.
That's a great one. That's really a great one. You know, you've got some great picks, and because you've got that album, I'm sure you'll have even more to choose from. But you know, everybody loves Disney, whether you still love Disney or not. I mean, Disney touched our lives. It's funny. It's like Nestle. One of the things that you learn when you work for Nestle, and I worked for them for 30 years, was that they make something for every human being from the time you're born to the time you die. And we
Wow.
were talking about that earlier, about living forever and
Yeah.
being and wise and or yeah, young and stupid. Uh, Disney makes a product for everybody from the time you're born to the time you die. When you go into a major supermarket, there's over 3,000 SKUs that they own in that store under different brands, DiGiorno, all these different things that they own that, and I did a lot of work for Nestle Pizza when Contadina Pizza, when they were trying to buy DiGiorno, and DiGiorno didn't like Nestle, so he wouldn't sell them the pizza. But then I guess he passed away years ago, and then they finally bought it, but they were trying to compete with them. They tried the same thing with it's ice cream sandwiches, which are the best ice cream sandwiches you're ever going to eat out of San Francisco. And they tried for years. Carnation, which Nestle owns, was trying to buy it, and they wouldn't do it. So they came out with their own version called "This Is It" instead of "It's It." And it failed miserably. So, and it's is still, it's like Jones Soda. They're building one consumer at a time, and it's just amazing. And you know, this album, this could have been album, would have been really great. But again, like everything else, it's all part of things that happened that goes on to be something better. And that's where hope and faith come in, to know that you're going to let go, but it's going to be something better down the line. You know, instead of holding on, you have to let go to be able to find that next experience, that next, you know, experience that you have, and the work that we're going to be talking about in the future, the different packages that ended up on the cutting room floor are going to reflect that, just like this package did, just like the Leon Russell package, Master of Space and Time. I mean, it would have these albums would have been great, but nobody's ever going to see them until now. Thank you and the Block Party and our family here to allow us to do this. I'm very appreciative.
And thank you, Ernie, for presenting this. What came to mind? I never had a chance to go to Disney World. Being a kid growing up in Baltimore, and it was very
Yeah.
difficult for my parents. But oh wow, to be able to see this now, and if it would have been presented, would have given a kid who couldn't make it to Disney that
Yeah.
experience. And I think this is what I feel about your art. You give the person the experience, even if they didn't have the chance to really have the real thing like in Disney. You bring a piece of it, even if you've never met any of the doors. When you designed that full circle, the zoetrope, what you brought to that fan was just a little bit of a piece of experience.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, and God bless you for saying that, because that was really the whole goal. The goal on just about every package that we did, everything that I've done in corporate and in music, I've tried to achieve that. Even if there was no budget to do something fancy like this, even if it was just a front and back album cover, I tried to do that. I tried to give the fan more than just a record in a sleeve that you put on your record player. It had to be more. And whether that was in the concept where somebody would look at it and go, wow, this is pretty cool, like Black Sabbath, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. There's no trick constructions or anything. It's just a front and a back. But it gets people really involved in it. I mean, you start thinking about the evil man at the split second of his death versus the good man at the split second of his death. Which do you want to be? Which are you? So it makes you think, it gets you involved. It isn't always about putting stuff together, but when there's the ability to do that, it just takes it another step. It takes it another step closer to involving that fan, getting them involved in more than just listening to the music or reading the liner notes. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if I can get you even more involved, that's what I'm going to do. Whether it's a concept that's heady or it's something that makes you laugh, it evokes an emotion. It creates that connection that I'm always trying to do, whether it's music in an album cover or it's a corporate piece to the consumer, American consumers. It's trying to create that link between the product and the consumer. And that's one way to do it. I mean, in print, that's all you can do. In video and commercials and stuff, it's a whole nother world. You have even if it's only 15 seconds in a quick commercial, you have the ability to grab somebody's attention. Um, the way I had to do it was, and when I did a lot of work for Nestle and Kraft and Coca-Cola, the trick was let other people spend the money bringing the consumer into the store. I want to capture that consumer 3 feet from where they're ready to buy this product, and right next to it is my product. And I'm going to do something more creative, more eye-catching there. That's where the money's spent to get that consumer that would go this way to actually go that way. So it's tricky, but it really is how I'm wired. It's what I try and do in everything that I do. And I try and give it my all. And, thank God for you and the Block Party and our family here. It's just awesome. It gives me the ability to do that and brings back a lot of memories to me too. Thank you.
You're welcome, Ernie. And the great thing is that WHFC is a college radio station that goes out beyond. We have a lot of art majors,
Yeah,
business majors, and when they see this segment, they learn something, and they learn from one of the best, and that's you.
I appreciate that. I love you for it. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm glad that, people like what we're doing.
I know. See, I like I said last time, long-haired, freaky people, come join these two hippies. We
That's
love you,
right.
and we'll welcome
That's
you on the
right.
block.
And there's always room. There's always room. No matter how big the block gets, there's always room for more.